Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show from Times Square. See, it says so officially on the mug. That's how you know where you're at. It is so good to have you with us, and grateful to have back with us from the Independent Women's Forum someone who keeps a watch on all things related to energy, Gabby Hoffman, and we're so grateful to have her back. Gabby, it's good to see you. I just had, completely separate from the news that we're going to talk about, I just had a private phone call 3 days ago with a major, well, what was a small-sized domestic drilling company here in the U.S. They've just made a bunch of acquisitions, and they're going to have probably a 300% footprint from what they had before. And it's all about the excitement of the new energy direction that the country is going, the proposals of what's around the corner in terms of what we can do. A lot of people still don't realize it. We are the number one most energy rich country on the planet, and we have just been punishing ourselves for the last 4 years in not using any of it and paying very high prices to use dirty energy from other places. But I thought of you actually when I was on that call. I was like, I bet Gabby would be very excited about hearing some of this development. So thanks for coming back.
Of course. Yeah.
Mr. Zeldin, one of my favorite former congressmen, and he came this close to being governor here in New York, is the new EPA administrator. And he made news this week. What did he do?
He was able to retrieve and uncover that $20 billion, I believe, in loan guarantees, or not loan guarantees, that's actually Department of Energy, but he found $20 billion in green programs that were going to be appropriated to so-called green capital entities. And those can be traced back and are already being traced back to major Democratic donors. So this perpetual slush fund through the EPA to fund green capital, whether it's climate investments, clean energy projects that don't work but sound nice. And he announced that the 20 billion in golden bars that were missing have now been successfully retrieved. And he's not the only one. You're soon going to see Department of Energy, Chris Wright. You're going to probably see Interior Secretary Doug Burgum find a lot of problematic, ridiculous spending within their agencies. And these agencies aren't really typically associated with corruption, DOE certainly, but you never hear really much about Department of Interior. But under Biden-Harris, they were appropriating money for things and functions that had nothing to do with their mission statements. So EPA, of course, being one of the first to shine a light on all this wasteful spending, the others are going to follow suit. And it's not surprising that this was happening. Biden had a whole of government climate first approach versus energy first approach. And this is the consequence of that.
Yeah. You know, what's amazing is RFK, just coming onto the job, Tulsi Gabbard's just coming into the job. But with the heads that have already been appointed and approved and are already working, including the non-necessary for approval DOGE whole operation that they've got going on, you're seeing this story repeated in place after place after place. The National Institutes of Health are paying 60 cents on the dollar for overhead expenses to universities and hospitals when no private hospital or university pays more than 8% in terms of what they pay. And it's not just in one area. It's like, I said this in a tweet to, or a private text to someone yesterday, but I really hold that it's true. It's like a malignancy that has attached onto the skeletal vortex of the entire country. Every department, every single area that the government works in, you've got these slush funds, you've got this, misappropriation of money, you've got this people just paying people off just to get things done. And who knows how much worse it would have gotten had the country not said, we're going to make a distinct change in November.
This is a consequence of the so-called job creation policies of Biden, where it's estimated, I believe, that he grew the federal workforce, mostly the private sector shrunk and atrophied, but the public sector government workforce grew about 6%. So he hired lots and lots of federal workers, largely to occupy these very questionable programs, to oversee these slush funds, and just to occupy space primarily. And this is a consequence when you think the federal government is tasked with job creation. The federal workforce grew as a result, which is why people are now realizing, if they hadn't, how much wasteful spending was abound.
Yeah.
How much in wasteful programs. I mean, the climate stuff has notoriously been wastefully spent.
Right.
Same with energy programs. But now that it's being not only shown there, but across the whole of government, this is to be expected when you had, like I said, someone prioritizing the expansion of government over the private sector, creating rather a environment that's business friendly, because we don't want the government to be the largest facilitator of job creation. They just have to create an environment where it can flourish. But this is what happens when you had Biden and Harris, who were grow government first, no accountability, no transparency. And this is the consequence. So these new cabinet secretaries all across the board, and like I said, including in energy and conservation, they're coming in and they're discovering all this wasteful spending, too much overhead, looking to trim their workforce and to streamline the process further. And this is what needs to happen. It's been long overdue for several decades.
We haven't even begun to see what they're going to find in Health and Human Services and the Department of Education. But just knowing on the stories that I've reported on for the last 15 years, there are even bigger departments with even bigger slush funds that are yet to be found. And I just think that by the time we get all of this rooted out, yeah, where there's going to be a lot of federal workers, they're going to have to go find jobs that, they actually have to do something at. No more of just sitting around and getting a paycheck sent to your home. But at the end of the day, we're going to be so much better off because of it. And I just hope that we do the thorough job, because like cancer, I use that correlation in a very fair way, because like cancer, you have to root out all of the malignancy. You have to go find all of it. Anyway, if you leave like one cell going somewhere, it'll all come back. You've got to go and you've got to root it out, and it's got to be something that the voters demand on a regular basis. I was just reminded of thinking of the, and this was a Doge, I think, discovery this week, that we were giving money to terrorist organizations, like just flat out charities that terrorists use to raise money for operations. We were cutting them checks, and nobody said anything about it. Really remarkable. Your expertise is energy. How much has changed already in the transfer of the Biden administration to the Trump administration? And we'll get started on this, and then we'll continue after the break. But what are you most pleased or most concerned about?
I'm very encouraged by this abandoning of this whole of government-wide net zero first, climate first posturing. Now it's energy abundance, reliability, energy security. And that really is a mammoth change in how energy policy should be executed. So having that change witnessed all across the board, that language is slowly disappearing, moving towards more positive language that would encourage energy development that is also coupled with true conservation efforts, this protection of the environment that we often hear about, but that doesn't actually work. It actually claims to put nature above people instead of having nature and people on an equal footing. And so even with all this robust energy development that we've been promised, which is soon to happen, it's going to take a little bit. Prices are a little high, not because of this existing administration, but because of inflationary pressures from the previous administration that are still hanging over. But I'm encouraged by the change in prioritization. Trump has great people at the helm of his Department of Interior, Burgum, as I mentioned, Chris Wright, who actually has energy industry experience. I don't think across the board. Previously, we had someone like that who's very innovative, understands the dynamic at play. He's going to work in concert with Doug Burgum in this proposed, or soon to be, I would say, unleashed National Energy Council. So they're really looking forward to supercharging that. And I think we'll start to see prices go down within 6 to 9 months realistically.
Gabby Hoffman, Independent Women's Forum, thank you so much. Kevin McCullough, much more straight ahead.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.